In June 2018, the QS World University Rankings was released, and it was not all good news for Philippine universities. UP is still within the top 500 universities but fell 17 spots lower than its rank last year, while Ateneo de Manila University and De La Salle University all fell from their previous ranking groups, while University of Santo Tomas maintained its ranking group. To understand this clearly, the QS World University Rankings has individual rankings for the top 500 universities. That is why UP has a specific number of spots it declined from. For universities after 500, they are divided into groups such as 651 to 700 group, where Ateneo de Manila University currently is in, and another relevant group is Group 801 to 1000, where DLSU and UST are both currently banded together. While the methodology and indicators used by QS rankings have been criticized, having weights based on reputation surveys, it still is one of the three most widely known university rankings in the world, and it is particularly known by students and researchers looking to study abroad. This is Jadin, and this is the Express Podcast, a podcast about Philippine politics, economy, society, and whatnot for the rest of us. In this episode, we are going to look into one of the four criteria of the rankings with the largest share in its indicators, the criteria of research quality. We'll look at how papers get published in journals with a scholar who has continuously been publishing in journals and still has not been rejected since she got her first yes. That is, from a journal.
I started looking into what makes me happy, and that's it. Writing papers is what makes me happy.
In the QS World University Rankings, the criteria of research quality includes two indicators: academic reputation and citations per faculty. Academic reputation is measured by a survey, while citations per faculty refers to the citations of articles written by a faculty member used by other researchers. While reputation surveys are pretty hard to control since they are based on the perception of the entire academic community on our universities, a more feasible strategy to increase our ranking is to increase the citations received by our faculty members. So citations basically count the number of times other papers cite or quote, or that is, use the information you said in your paper. So basically, you increase your citations either by getting more scholars to know more of your study or to publish as many articles as you can. Now, to get a grasp of this, we look specifically on the number of citations criteria in another world ranking, the CIMAGO, that is, or CIMAGO, depends on how you say it, Journal and Country Rank, which is part of the SJR database. I posted the link of the website in our podcast description, and I also tweeted about this in our Twitter handle at express_podcast. The index gathers data from 34,100 journals from the Scopus database. I'll get into that Scopus database in a minute. And the magic number of this episode is 1,459. That is the number of times papers written by Filipinos were cited in 2017. That is 1,459 times. For comparison, Thailand has 6,476 and Indonesia has 4,059 in the same year. So as I mentioned, one strategy to have more citations is for our faculty members to first produce more papers. That is, more papers or articles could lead to more citations and hopefully higher QS World ranking. And that brings us to this topic of how scholars actually get their papers or articles published in a journal. A journal basically is a scholarly publication with articles written by professors, experts, and researchers on specific fields or areas of study. However, publishing in journals is by no means an easy task. So, I went out and asked a seasoned scholar in terms of writing journal articles.
I'm Sally Gutierrez.
Sally is currently a PhD student in biology in Seoul National University, and she is also a science education specialist in the UP National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development. That was long. Or NISMED. Firstly, tell us more about NISMED.
NISMED is primarily a research institution focused on teaching science and mathematics for elementary teachers, high school teachers, and since the launching of the K-12 curriculum, it targets as well the senior high school teachers, which are somehow affiliated in the tertiary education system or the college schools in the Philippines.
Sally was first involved in research right after graduation.
I was really interested into research after graduation from my bachelor's degree. So I started doing research in the applied sciences.
You know, that is the part of science which translates existing scientific knowledge into practical applications.
So I started working in the laboratory.
But when she finished her master's and went to work for NISMED, a new field caught her interest.
My attention was not shifted, but the research concern of NISMED was added into my research interest, which is now science education. Research in the applied science field is still there, but since we're more dealing into science education, the research interest that I'm currently doing now is aligned to science education.
And it was around this time that she got started in publishing papers in journals.
When I joined UP NISMED, the first notion that I have is I joined a research institution. However, that time, K-12 was on its second year of implementation. And since UP NISMED is a national training institute for trainers, so Department of Education and DOST SEI usually tap UP NISMED for training of teachers. So, which made the institution not completely neglect, but somehow the vision or the role was deviated toward training. So the research component was a bit on a lilo, and then I was a bit frustrated because I thought I joined a research institution, but then if I get to resign again because I'm not fulfilled, it's not gonna help me, right?
Her journey is a typical success story after a series, I kid you not, a long series of deciding to not give up. So she wrote this paper, submitted it to a journal, and received a rejection email. She received a total of 7 rejection emails on her first attempt to publish her paper. And so I asked her, how did she get over this? And her strategy was actually simple.
I printed all the email correspondence, the emails from the reviewers, and then identified which among them is very common, and I tried to revise the paper. But then on the 7th submission, it's still a fail. But on the 8th submission, I revised it from the 7th. On the 8th revision, it was accepted.
And from then on, all the papers she submitted have all been accepted.
From that start, like from 2013 until now, I haven't received any rejection yet.
Given her experience, I naturally asked her for tips, for myself and also for other interested listeners out there. And the first thing she said was to read the target journal thoroughly.
The journal says, usually in the website in the page of the journal, they say what they want in their article. So it's already indicated there. So the theme of your paper should be aligned to the theme of the journal. Otherwise, it will be rejected. First, your topic should be aligned to the journal concern. For example, I think the 6th article that I wrote is about professional development of teachers. And I submitted it in a journal named Journal of Professional Development.
The second tip from her is to avoid predatory journals. If possible, aim for Scopus listed journals.
Nowadays there are a lot of predatory journals.
Predatory journals.
Yeah, these
What are they?
predatory journals, they are like journals that publish papers in a matter of a month, or it's not even, we don't know if it's even peer reviewed thoroughly. And sometimes they ask for payment, and usually the publication payment is a minimum of $500.
Okay.
Yeah.
But normally, if it's not that, like, there's no payment, right? It's free to submit.
Yeah, for all ISI journals
Yeah.
and Scopus Index journals, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
But in some of those journals, if you publish your work, like there's a colored colored photograph, they ask for publication fee on that specific page.
Scopus is an example of an indexing organization.
It's something that creates it into a reputable journal, because they are affiliated into the Web of Science. Yeah, it's indexing and abstracting. If you try to open a journal, you will see there in their websites like indexing or abstracting, and there's a lot of indexing organizations
Such as Scopus, ISI, and more common to most people, the Google Scholar. Journals that are listed in these indices mean that these journals are of high quality and thus are used more frequently by scholars around the world. Another reason? Listed journal means higher impact and higher probability of being cited.
If your paper is published in a high impact journal, you will get very high citations.
The third tip is for advisors to encourage your students to publish their research output and to even check on them at least every semester.
Here, we are really encouraged to write. It's a must in the graduate school that we have to write. But in the Philippines, even in the University of the Philippines, it's rarely that you hear your teachers saying that, oh, your master's thesis should be published, your dissertation should be published. But here, it's like every semester your professor checks or updates, like, do you have a working paper now? So it's actually a matter of a push from the professors.
And just a last bit, there are also monetary incentives when you publish your articles.
It's very hard to publish, you know. It's like a very, very tedious process. And universities usually acknowledge or appreciate those individuals who are able to publish. And they give monetary incentives. So part of it is like, I was surprised during my first publication.
You didn't know?
I didn't know. I did not know that there's a monetary incentive from the University of the Philippines.
And she was really glad it turned out well. And now this became one of her additional motivation to publish papers. You know, in addition to the fact that she considers writing papers as some sort of a hobby. So, how many papers have you written by now?
As of now, I have 9. Yeah, I 9 papers, but 2 are in press. So meaning they are in the desktop of the publisher. Yeah, they're undergoing like formatting and about to be out.
Sally is now averaging at least 2 published papers per year, and I asked her how the higher number of papers, higher number of citations, and ultimately a higher rank in the QS World Rankings help our universities.
It's a matter of how they get students. For example, in attracting foreign students. Of course, foreign students want to go to high-ranking universities.
Okay, that is true.
Yeah.
We are still struggling to make our universities one of the top universities, at least in the region. And obviously, that is not an easy task. But seeing the likes of Sally, who study abroad and then plan to go back to the Philippines and publish even more papers, and hopefully a book, gives some positivity that we will get there eventually. Before you guys go, if you learned anything in this episode, I would just like to ask you guys to share this episode to at least one of your closest friends. And also, let me know of your thoughts on this by sending me a tweet at express_podcast. Next week's episode will be about women in the workplace, and I wanted to ask the women among our listeners if they can identify differences in how they were treated, either, positively or negatively, in finding their jobs or staying in the jobs. And for the men among our listeners, feel free to answer the question based on your observations. You can send me this voicemail through our email, which is theexpresspodcast@gmail.com. This is the Express Podcast, and always remember to follow traffic rules when you are going out for a ride. Salamat!